the one thing I want to get into is what we just heard. And this is the beauty of pro wrestling and the beauty of a moment. We just played the end of SmackDown from Friday night. And we'll get into everything that happened up to the moment at the end of that show. But Roman Reigns calls the wise man, Paul Heyman, and you hear this tremendous pop from the crowd. And just 4 seconds later, when you hear the recorded message of the number you have reached is no longer in service, you could hear a pin drop in the crowd, Bully. Like, if that's not an emotional roller coaster, I honestly don't know what is, Bully.
I found that segment to be very entertaining on multiple levels. First, it was very reminiscent of a scene that I am a big fan of from back in the day in ECW. I felt like they recreated an incredible moment. I've talked about it on the show before. It's when we see Tommy Dreamer standing outside his car, basically in the pitch black of night. He doesn't know what to do. He's getting hit from all ends by every heel out there. And he finally decides that there's only one person that he can call. And he picks up the phone and he says, "Operator, get me the Double Cross Ranch." And then they go to black. And obviously Tommy was calling Terry Funk. On SmackDown, we see Roman Reigns dial up or tell Siri, get me the wise man. So that was a nice little throwback that I appreciated. Not sure how many people caught it or picked it up, but it didn't matter. Crowd popped as soon as he said the wise man. And then all of a sudden, this is where I really found it entertaining, Paul Heyman up to his old phone tricks again. And you hear the recording saying, the number that you have reached has been disconnected. I think Paul would disconnect his phone on purpose back in the day if he didn't want to have anybody get in touch with him. Nevertheless, you're right. That place, they came up so high when Roman said the wise man, and they came down so low when you heard the automated recording. The number you have reached is not in service, or it's been disconnected, or whatever the operator said. Where, oh, where can Paul Heyman be?
There's that. And I definitely am curious about the whereabouts of Paul Heyman. But Mark, like what Bully just said, and that is the crowd reaction. When you're doing a segment in the back, not in the ring, in front of a crowd, and you get the type of reaction that you heard on Friday night when all Roman Reigns said was the wise man, and you get that pop, but then the complete silence when you hear the number is no longer in service, Mark. That's the beauty of an emotional roller coaster. And when you look at this Bloodline story and all the twists and turns and all the characters and personalities that have been involved, man, you can't get more emotionally connected than the way we were on Friday night. And I absolutely love the way that crowd reacted to Roman Reigns. And then how about Roman Reigns' facial expression of just complete despair when he got that recorded message on the phone Friday night?
Not only, Dave, was it despair, but it was like hopelessness. He lost all hope. And he did all of that with his face. Like we underestimate a lot of times how you and why you feel a certain kind of way in wrestling. And it was always, Bully, I don't know about you, and I think I know, that you was always told, right here is the money.
Absolutely, your face.
And there is nobody over the last few months, matter of fact, the last 3 years, that has been more descriptive in their physical action than a Roman Reigns. So yeah, David, it didn't shock me that they got that reaction, but it did show me that the crowd was emotionally invested, and then the rug just got pulled right out from under him. It was incredible.
Now, what else is incredible is I watched SmackDown. I watched the entire show, watched every second of that show. And there was something that happened that I did not catch. And it was actually social media and our producer, Paul, that made me aware of it because I didn't see it. And that is when the Usos and Sami Zayn go to meet Roman Reigns in the room. And Sami's like, you know, you guys don't want to tell him, so I'll be the one that tells him. Nobody wants to be the fifth member for this team. Nobody wants to work with us because of the history of the bloodline. Nobody wants to be that fifth member with us at Survivor Series. And right as that segment is about to close, and maybe you guys saw it, maybe you didn't. Right before that segment is about to close, Sami Zayn reaches into his pocket, pulls out a phone, and throws the phone onto the couch. Right, I mean, if you weren't, I didn't see it. I did not see it until later on. So as I was watching, I didn't catch that little motion of him going into his pocket and throwing the phone on the couch, which makes me wonder, what does that have to do with how that show ended on Friday night? Was Sami Zayn recording what was going on in the room? Is that a phone that's very much like Roman's phone? And maybe, you know, was that maybe, I don't know. But something happened there with Sami Zayn and the phone during the course of that show Friday night.
This, I think we're going to have to throw out to the nation and our fans out there who don't miss anything, who see every little thing that goes on. I'm not quite sure what the phone was either. Mark, do you have any idea?
The only thing that I could think of, y'all, was Sammy had suggested somebody and knew somebody to call, and he threw it down like, there's a phone calling. But who is that?
No, but Mark,
it looked like he was getting rid of the phone.
Yeah, it was like the Usos and Roman were not looking at Sammy. He kind of did it on the sneak. Like he reached into his pocket and kind of just like sighed through the phone onto the couch, like doing it so that they wouldn't notice he was throwing the phone. So
I didn't see it. I'm going to have to go back and watch in the break.
And Mark, I didn't see it either. When I watched it, I did not catch it. But this is what the WWE has been doing lately, where they throw things out there on TV in plain sight. And if you're not really paying attention, you're going to miss it. But the WWE also knows, like Bully said, that the WWE audience or the pro wrestling audience is so attentive on what's going on. Somebody's going to pick up on Jey Uso having a conversation with Rey Mysterio way in the back. So like when you first watch the segment, you don't catch it, but it's happening and it's not the focal point, but they know somebody is going to catch up on it. Somebody's going to throw that out on social media and it's going to start a conversation. And it's there. Oh. It's there in plain sight. But if you're not paying attention, you're not going to see it. So to me, right now, as of now, I said it at Crown Jewel and I'll say it again. I do not trust Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn, the conversation he had with Solo Sikoa, the kick to Roman Reigns, and now this phone being thrown onto the couch on Friday night. If I am the Bloodline, I think that they have trusted Sami Zayn way too much to make him a part of this Survivor Series team, and I think it's going to bite them in the ass come War Games.
You always need – I wasn't mad at Sammy for the conversation he had with Solo because you always need somebody to go infiltrate to get information. And nobody else could have done that except for him. And he did the right thing at the right time. Now he was able to relay information that he knows. I think that was like a good icebreaker. And he got to get it off his chest. Me and Bully, we've had our run-in before. And I think that Roman and Sammy got that. And Jay-Z had a famous song, Beanie Siegel had a favorite song where he talked about Jay-Z. and he said, hey, look, this is not open season on my friend. This is just me taking my friend out back and going, hey, are we still tight? Because if we not, then we can war. I don't care. But I'm just letting you know that I look at you like my brother. Sami was able to get that off his chest by kicking Roman in the face. Sometimes you just got to go and get that off your chest. And I feel like having welcomed him in was a good thing. I don't see it as a negative.
All right. Well, I mean, listen, not if he's sabotaging this whole thing. And there's a very good case that Sami is. I'm not saying that he is. I'm not saying that he is, but I'm not saying that he isn't. There's a lot of things going on over the last couple of weeks with Sami Zayn that I don't know if he's on. And here's the other thing too. And guys, you don't have to necessarily just say it about this story. You can also say it when it comes to Kevin Owens, just like we said with Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. If Sami was turning his back on the bloodline, could you blame him for turning his back on the bloodline? There's a lot of history with the bloodline and the devastation that they have caused over the last 3 years in this company. So if anybody was going to stab them in the back, this is the big reason why they can't find the fifth member for this Survivor Series match, because at this point, nobody trusts the bloodline. Why would you?
But they did go after Bronson Reed, which Bronson Reed turned that the fact that him and Seth Rollins have an issue, and now Seth Rollins is an option. Even though he said he didn't want nothing to do with it, but Bronson Reed might have brought him into it.
So, all right, so let me ask you this, and Bully, I'll start with you. When you heard that recorded message, and you made the joke about Heyman that I guess at times he goes completely off the radar, but what was when you saw that despair on Roman's face and you heard that recorded message, what was the first thing you thought of?
That Paul Heyman disconnected that number for a reason. What would that reason be? He didn't want to be found. He doesn't want anybody to know what's going on. He doesn't want anybody to know what he's planning. The less people that know, the better. The more that can possibly benefit the bloodline if Paul is coming back with Roman. Maybe Paul has something up his sleeve. The less people that know, the better. Maybe we're going to see that fifth member revealed well, obviously we're going to have to see that fifth member revealed at the Survivor Series. Unless Paul Heyman is no longer thinking in terms of the bloodline. Unless Paul Heyman is no longer thinking in terms of Roman Reigns being the guy he wants to be aligned with. I can't figure out why, but the number one person out there who should be able to get in touch with Paul Heyman is who? Roman Reigns.
I would think it would be Roman. That would be the top on my list.
Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns have been attached at the hip for the longest time. Why would Paul disconnect his number and the number one guy in his life can't get in touch with him? Now, we saw a phone get destroyed by Solo Sikoa, right?
Yes.
Somebody's phone was destroyed. Just because you destroy a phone doesn't mean that the number is no longer working and no longer in service. The number and the phone have nothing to do with one another. What other phone did Paul Heyman have in his hand when Solo Sikoa destroyed Paul Heyman's phone?
I don't know.
The other phone had a logo on it. Do you remember what logo it was?
No, I don't.
If memory serves me correct, that other phone had the logo of The Rock on it. Now, I don't know if I'm looking too deep into this, whatever. I love that I'm looking deep into this because we don't know. But let me ask you this.
I was thinking The Rock.
How
too.
insane would it be? And I don't know the reason why yet. I can't even come up with a good hypothesis. How insane would it be if somehow Paul Heyman was linking himself to The Rock?
I mean, listen, let's be honest here. We've seen Heyman turn his back on Punk to go with Brock. We've seen Heyman turn his back on Brock to go with Roman. Like, Heyman likes to attach himself to whoever is the biggest and the best at that time.
Yep.
So if I would not put it past Paul Heyman to do that.
Now, back to my original thought. Is Paul doing something so under the radar so that when this is all said and done, if Roman says, why did you disconnect your number without telling me? Paul says, I had to do this in the best interest of the bloodline, of the OG bloodline. I had to get something done. I had to keep everybody in the dark, including you, Roman. So originally we got the Seth and Bronson interaction. And we came on the show and we were like, this kind of feels a little bit forced. Could they be going in other directions? Now it looks like they're back. Bronson is definitely back in the mix, which would lead you to believe, okay, they're kind of trying to get Seth in the mix. But Seth was pretty adamant about not being in the mix. So where is Paul Heyman and who is the fifth man?
Can I throw another curve? Go ahead.
Hold on. Who are the other Paul Heyman guys out there that Paul could call and count on?
Brock
Lesnar,
Punk, CM Punk. I think those are the top two, right?
Correct.
As far as, yeah.
I mean,
so,
what if Paul called in Punk? Who would take it? Even though he said no, I could see Seth taking exception to Punk being the fifth guy. Because Seth's got it in for Punk.
well, that's why last week we talked about.
Am I making sense here or not?
No, I mean, because you have to look at it this way, and I know we're throwing out a lot of conspiracy theories here, but that's what we have to do. And it all comes down to the disconnected phone line to Paul Heyman and Sami Zayn throwing that phone on the couch. So let me throw this out there. I mean, this is really out there, so I'm prepared for you guys to kick me in the nuts. You talked about a destroyed phone. What if the destroyed phone was Roman's phone? Sami Zayn throws that phone on the couch that is identical to Roman's phone. And it's the Heyman is, again, he's not searching through his phone. He's talking to like Siri or whatever. Call the wise man. What if Sami Zayn labeled the disconnected number to the wise man? So when Roman is saying call the wise man, it goes direct. It's not really calling Paul Heyman. It's calling a disconnected phone number.
Here's the first thing that comes to mind. If that is the case, you're going to have to do that Sixth Sense kind of finish and wrap this up and go back and tell the story.
Well, no matter what they do, there's a reason why Sami Zayn threw that phone on the couch. Why did Sam? And again, to Mark's point earlier, it's not like he wanted the other guys to see it. Like it wasn't like it was his own phone and he just tossed it on. He did not want any. He did it on the side. He did it like, all right, let me take this out so nobody sees and let me just toss it on the couch. Knowing that the Usos and him were leaving and the only person that was going to be in that room alone was going to be Roman Reigns. There's something behind Sami Zayn tossing that phone onto the couch. Now, we've seen this before. That could mean absolutely nothing, or that could mean absolutely everything. It's kind of like Bully. It's kind of like that handshake with Cody and The Rock. What did Cody give The Rock? Like, what was exchanged there? That could mean nothing, or that could mean everything. I don't know. I don't have an answer.
I definitely think that today is one of those days, based on this question, where we should probably get some input from the nation who knows it, because I don't know the significance of the throwing of the phone. I mean, it was just, other than Sami going into his pocket and pulling out a phone and throwing it on the couch, we don't know of any other Sami phone story, do we?
No.
So what phone, why am I to suspect that that phone in Sami's pocket is anything other than Sami's phone? Who else's phone would it be?
Well, I mean, but why would Sami throw his phone on the couch when it's not his office and they're leaving?
I don't know. So let's think about this. Why would you take your own phone out of your pocket and throw it on the couch?
Because you don't want it. The only thing was you don't want anybody to reach you. Like somebody's been calling you.
No. Wait a minute. Time out.
Or you put your phone on record, and when you left, you wanted to get what people were going to say when you left.
That's true. It's a good point by Mark.
So, okay. I mean, it's thin, but okay. Like Sami just threw his phone. Would you ever do that? Would either one of you guys do that? Take your phone out, press record, throw it down just to leave it there to record what other people were saying once you left the room?
I wouldn't even think of doing that, but again, I'm a 53-year-old man. Sami Zayn may be up on the fact that, hey, man, I want to hear what Roman's going to have to say about me and about this situation because he's probably not going to tell us the truth. So let me see what his response, because Sami Zayn was adamant about telling Roman, because the other guy, the Usos didn't. Like Sami Zayn stepped up and was like, all right, nobody wants to say it, so I'll say it. Roman, nobody wants to work with you. Nobody wants to be the fifth member. Nobody wants to work with the Bloodline because of all the things that you've done in the past. So you know what? I'm just letting you know that nobody wants to work. We can't find that fifth member. And then, he takes that phone. Maybe he wanted Roman to make a phone call. Maybe he thought he'd be calling Paul Heyman. Maybe Sami thought maybe he would be calling The Rock. I don't know. Who knows? And the other thing about it too, and I'll ask you both, Mark, I'll ask you first, because you talked about the facial expressions of Roman. Have you ever seen Roman that distraught like you did at the end of that show on Friday night, where he looked absolutely devastated and it was like hopelessness written all over his face?
Never. I never seen Roman react like that. When he should have reacted like that with his cousins, he didn't. So, like, whatever this is, like with Paul, and knowing that he can't get a hold of Paul, there's decisions that he's thinking about that he feels like not comfortable with making those decisions. That's why he had the wise man. To not get your general counsel, your number one, means that you got to make a decision based off what you think rather than what the consensus is. And Roman has not done that. He's had Paul the whole time.
And Mark, you make a good point. Bully, I'll bring you in here. Like, we've seen a cocky Roman Reigns where he's leaned on the Usos, he's leaned on Heyman, and really in a lot of ways disrespected, almost like he was doing them a favor by having him a part of this. That was the first time where it was like he reached out to Heyman because he really needed Paul Heyman, like absolutely needed Paul Heyman on Friday night.
Well, he needed his advice. Okay, but what's your question? What's your point? What do you want to know from me?
Because the point is that for the first time ever, I felt like Roman was like, I need Paul Heyman. And then he reaches out to Paul Heyman and there's no Paul Heyman. Like, how is now Roman going to react to that? For the first time ever, he let his guard down to really ask somebody for advice and from Heyman, and there's no Heyman there.
I think it's impossible to predict how he's going to react because there are so many different ways that he's going to be able to react. Next week, when we see Roman, will Paul be there? I think the next time we see Paul Heyman is when he brings that fifth member to the table. But let's think rationally here, guys.
Without asking.
The OG bloodline need a fifth member, right?
Yes.
If it's not Seth, and Seth and Paul really have no ties, and the OG bloodline already went to Seth, and Seth said no.
Yeah, this is going to be the next question. This is where, like you said, Bully, we're going to need the Busted Open Nation here, because what happened with that phone and why, and then who could possibly be the fifth member? Because it seems obviously it would be Seth Rollins because it's Bronson Reed, but I think there's reasons why it's Bronson Reed, and you don't necessarily need Seth Rollins on the other side.